into the Hockey Talk Show for this Thursday, January 18th. The Hockey Talk Show live on Facebook and YouTube, and of course, home base hockeytalkshow.com. The Hockey Talk Show, where hockey passion is required and pants are not. Lots to talk about on the episode tonight. Of course, you can see it in the headlines there. Mike Babcock and the media up in Toronto. Tough little dance to do. Always, if you're the head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs, you're always going to have to deal with that issue of the constant nagging from the Toronto media. We'll get into a couple of the press scrums that he's had yesterday and today. A little snippiness in there. By the way, there's always a little snippiness in these media scrums with the head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Always. Before Mike Babcock, of course, after Mike Babcock. That's if there'll ever be it after Mike Babcock. I think Mike Babcock will live forever and be the head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs like a vampire till the end of time. But anyway, there's always been a little bit of snippiness in there, but in particular, there's something interesting about the snippiness now, which is they're starting to slide, the Maple Leafs. I still think they're going to be okay, but they're starting to slide a little bit. And the stories are changing focus from, you know, the Leafs this, the Leafs that, the Leafs this, to Babcock this, Babcock that, Babcock this. And, you know, also the media is scrutinizing if they are getting to Mike Babcock. You know, I don't consider myself the media in this case. I'm not scrutinizing Mike Babcock. But the ones that are up there in Toronto that are in the media scrums with him and asking him questions each and every single day, they sure are in there and, you know, debating whether or not they are effectively getting to him. That's just what the media does up there in Toronto. So we'll get into that a little bit. And Jack Johnson has officially requested a trade. It is no longer up for debate. Stories all over the place on this one. Jack Johnson asking for a trade out of Columbus. How that impacts not only the Blue Jackets, but of course the Maple Leafs and maybe who else will be interested. We'll delve into that topic as well tonight. And of course, we'll tackle some of the other rumor mills that are going on. I know there's a lot of names being thrown around now. Things are heating up. We're probably going to touch on rumors almost every show. As almost every show, there'll be a new thing to talk about. But Jack Johnson will be a big part of that. The Ottawa Senators and J.G. Pageau, Michael Grabner are starting to get a lot of attention as well. I don't see the Rangers as a seller, and I don't know if this is just the rumor mill media trying to garner their clicks and spread these rumors around and get it all out there. It might just be that, but they continue to throw Michael Grabner's name around there, and I just don't buy it. But as long as the Rangers, the Islanders, and the Pittsburgh Penguins continue to trade off positions in that wild card spot, we will be talking about it, because the idea of one of these teams falling out of favor is entirely possible. And if it is the Rangers, I think you're going to see a huge sell-off, not only Grabner, but of course Nash, so on and so forth. But that is if they fall out. And I think they have to fall significantly out. You know, I think they have to fall significantly out. Chicago chiming in already. Isles 5, Bruins 3. God bless you, my man. I hope that comes to fruition. By the way, I think we went 2 for 2 in last night's picks. Granted, we only had 2 games. But remind me if I'm lying. I think we picked Anaheim and I think we picked Boston. We didn't have the scores right. I don't think anybody did. But Anaheim over the Penguins 5-3, and that was a good game. Boston over Montreal as expected, 4-1. That damn Boston looks good. They look good. I might amend your pick there, Chicago. I might say Isles 6, Boston 5, because I think the Boston Bruins are going to come and bring the Thunder tonight. Shoot a comment in there on Facebook and YouTube if you guys are here with me. Let me know what you want to talk about tonight. What's bothering you? What trade bait your team could be getting? We'll get into that, of course, if you want to. Anything you want to talk about on the Hockey Talk Show, let me know that you're in the show here and you're watching. And of course, if you're listening to this on the podcast, rate and review. Where do we want to start? Do we want to start off with Babcock right away? Or do we want to get into Jack Johnson a little bit here? Let's get into Jack Johnson. We'll start with the trade rumors. Then we'll start with the coach problems. And then we'll go back to the trade rumors. I was surprised, and I mentioned this on a previous show, that I thought I had saw something that Jack Johnson had asked for a trade, but I thought, well, that can't be right. You know, he's kind of been a stalwart there in Columbus. They're in a playoff spot. Shouldn't be many problems. I don't think they'll have much of an issue, you know. Krista, welcome to the show. Tuning in from Colorado, where there's nothing wrong with the world. The Avalanche are doing just fine, aren't they? Are you as surprised as the rest of the world is that the Avalanche are doing this damn good? Because I'm shocked. I really am shocked. It's not often you trade your #1 draft pick, the guy that you decided to build your franchise around, and then improve throughout the course of the season. I mean, it's really, really unbelievable what the Colorado Avalanche are doing over there. They are surprising me. And by the way, those who picked Colorado, just like those who picked Bitcoin back when it cost $100, are out there gloating up a storm going, I told you so. The I told you so train is running hard in the Bitcoin world and the Colorado Avalanche world. Because if you picked both early on, you look like a genius right now. You look like a real genius right now. Krista says yes and no. Good answer. Good answer, Krista. Back to Jack Johnson here. As we stand right now, and again in that tough Eastern with Metro Division there, Columbus is sitting with 53 points. Again, you know, they could possibly slide out. When you look at all the teams that can fall out here, Columbus is possible. The Devils are possible, though their win against the Islanders really helped them out. And Toronto is also possible. The problem is that nobody's really pressing from the Atlantic Division. You know, that continues to be the thing in the East. It's that Metro Division that is so tough. And in the Atlantic, nobody's really pressing because Detroit is a full 11 points behind Toronto. So if somebody's going to make a run here, you know, then they're going to make a run. But Toronto, that's why I think Babcock is still feeling pretty okay, because he can slide a little bit and still maintain his playoff position. And it doesn't really matter because the way the wild card is based, he's not going to have to worry about playing Tampa in the first round. You can have Toronto finishing with less points than the wild card spots and them still getting into the second round. Because do I think that Toronto can beat Boston? Not if they play this week. No, not if they play this week. But eventually, yeah, I do actually. And if they do wind up picking big old number 7 over here, let's not forget, you know, Jack Johnson is a good, big, tough player. I think if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs, you got to be salivating right now at the idea that this guy is available. Jack Johnson speaking out for the first time, really, on the fact that he has asked for a trade. Do we have audio on this? No. I don't think we do. We have audio of Jack. I didn't screen this. It's 4.5 minutes. I'm going to give this 2 seconds and see if it turns into anything. If not, we'll bail on it. Is this Jack Johnson?
Yeah, for sure. I think we've had a great relationship. I have nothing but respect for him, and I absolutely love playing for him, so I wanted to get everything out and clear the air with him first and foremost.
And you want to make it work here, period.
Well, yeah, I mean, this isn't a situation, you know, that's normal. You know, most people, stuff like this happens is because they don't want to be where they're at, or, you know, they're not happy with the team, city, coaches, whatever. I'm not. This isn't a case of any of that. Sure. You know, so, you know, I hope people can understand that. You know, it's a situation where you're trying to do what's best for your family, and me and my wife and kids, and you know, I think any father or husband can relate to that.
Jack, it looks like you're back with Savvy for tomorrow night. Is that maybe the first step towards getting a reset here, almost, and getting back into the role you were familiar with last year?
Yeah, you know, I'm not looking for a so-called reset. I'm just trying to play the best hockey I can and win. You know, my focus on is trying to win the game tomorrow night and doing my part to help these guys win. You know, but you know, yeah, I'm comfortable. I'm happy to be playing with Savvy. He and I have had a long history together. We love playing with each other and good friends off the ice. And looking forward to the game tomorrow night.
This is not new to you, this whatever's going on right now. How much do you think it has affected your play? I remember Cam talking about how he was really caught up in his contract before it happened. How much do you think this has weighed upon you and affected your play?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to think it hasn't, but it's something I think about and talk about with my wife all the time, and it's I'd like to sit here and say it hasn't, but who knows? It's a big part of my life. I mean, this is my livelihood and my job, and how I'm going to try and take care of my family. So to answer that question, I don't know, but I try to do my very best every day to come in here and just play hockey. And this locker room and that sheet of ice is kind of my sanctuary where I try to just play hockey and not think about all that. And the business side of hockey sucks. The business side of sports sucks. And something like that, that goes out and goes public isn't good for anybody. But again, that's the business side of it, and that's unfortunate.
Jack Heaven now.
All right, so that was Jack Johnson. I'm glad we got to actually play that, so you got to hear it a little bit there. There was a lot of rumors on whether or not he actually had asked to be traded. And again, the first time I heard this, I'm like, why would he ask to be traded? He's in a good situation. He's on a team that is, by all accounts, looking like they're going to be a playoff contender. One of the few teams that I think could really come out of the East and challenge Tampa. Why would you want to get a trade out of that situation? But there's a little bit more to Jack Johnson's situation. He went through bankruptcy proceedings a couple of years ago. I don't know if you guys remember this. It was kind of a big story for a little while there. His parents, who were running all his finances, totally just did a job on him, and he had to declare bankruptcy, and he came away with that with essentially nothing. He lost a lot of his salary. They had to settle. There was a lot of issues there. Then he got traded. And by all accounts, I think he's looking for a really big payday. Now, what's happening here, and this is why I brought up the Daily Face-Off lineups, what's interesting is when Jack Johnson got acquired in Columbus, he was by far the #1 defenseman. He was the guy. He was the Drew Doughty. He was the Noah Hannafin. He was, he was the Ryan McDonough. He was the guy there. He was the 1A defenseman. And then what happened was the Jackets went out and got #3, Seth Jones. And then suddenly he became the #1 defenseman. And Johnson was playing with Werenski for a little while there. And then Werenski and Jones started getting a little bit of chemistry. And then so Werenski came up and they made the top pairing. And then Jack Johnson settled into this second pairing. But by the way, this is a great 4. I mean, this is a great top 4 if you're looking at defensemen. He was playing with David Savard. Now, I know in recent games he slid down a little bit into a third defensive pairing. And they've been bringing in other guys to play in there with Savard. And I thought that was where this was all going. I thought this was an issue with John Tortorella. By the way, and maybe this is unfair, but the natural assumption that I had made was that he just doesn't want to play with John Tortorella anymore. I mean, it's not uncommon. Now, they've been winning over there in Columbus a whole bunch, so that alleviates some of the hardships that you have to deal with when you're playing with a coach like this. You're playing for a coach like Tortorella and you're winning. All is killer, man. All is great. When you're playing for a Tortorella and you're not winning, that could be a hard existence to go through. That could be a really, really tough existence. So I just naturally assumed that that's what it was when I heard the news that he wanted to trade. And obviously he's not talking about it too much. So one would have to assume that this has a lot to do with the fact that he was put into bankruptcy and he does have to get himself in a financial position. Like you heard him say there, usually it's the town, it's the city, it's the locker room, or it's the coach. And in this case, it's not. In this case, I think it's just a scenario where he's on the second pairing. He's a great top 4, but he's not there all the time. Sometimes he's in a third pairing situation. And if you want to go into free agency and cash in, you have to be getting big minutes. If you want to go out there and get paid like you're a 1A defenseman like you were before Werenski and Jones came in here, well, then you have to have the playing time and you have to have the stats behind that to do that. And I think that's more what it is. So this guy's looking at this like, hey, I got to get paid here, and I'm not going to be able to do it if I'm skating behind 3, 8, and 58. If I'm the fourth best defenseman on this team, I got to go somewhere else and raise my profile a bit. So I guess he had asked for this a little while ago. According to The Athletic, January 12th was when the trade request was made. And his whole thinking is, I have to go somewhere else where I can play a lot and I can get paid. I mean, think about it. If you're in a position, and this is for everybody watching and listening, think about where you are in your life. Maybe you're 26, maybe you're 45. Think about if you got completely wiped out of all of your money, everything. If you lost everything and you had to start over, what would you do? And oh, by the way, you can only work for 5 more years. See, that's the thing that people don't really think about. We've talked about it on this show before. These guys are human, These guys, we get to work till 65, 70 if we want. 55, whatever 52, whatever you want to retire. You have that option. Hockey players have like an 11-year window for the really good ones. Some of them are in and out of this league in 4 or 5 years. But for the really good ones, like a Jack Johnson, that window is small. And if you had mismanaged funds and your family screwed you over and you're in a situation now where you got 5 years to set yourself up and your family for the rest of your life, you better cash in. I understand his logic. I don't know if it's the right thing to do, but I understand his logic. Because if you go really far with the Columbus Blue Jackets and you got great numbers, you're going to get paid, man. You're going to get paid. But maybe he just sees it as a situation where, he's thinking to himself, well, look, I can go to, Arizona, or I can go to, trying to think of who else is on the bottom of the salary cap right now, who's got a lot of space and who could use a defenseman. Jersey, Carolina, maybe that's what he's thinking. I think he was a draft pick of Carolina originally, was he not? Wasn't Jack Johnson a Carolina Hurricane to start his career? I think he was. I think he went from Carolina to the Kings, and then the Kings to the Blue Jackets, if I'm not mistaken. So, he was a number 3 pick of the Carolina Hurricanes in 2005. So maybe that's what he's thinking. Hey, Carolina's sitting there with $15 million of cap space. Maybe I can get a whole big chunk of that if I come down there and I play hard. Colorado, Krista, would you like Jack Johnson in your lineup? I don't think the Avalanche would argue with him. He's a great defenseman. He's got great skill. He's big. He's tough. He's responsible in his own end. His numbers aren't, shining star numbers this year, and maybe that's part of the pressure of why he wants to get out and get into a better situation. 46 games, 2 goals, 5 assists for 7 points and a -5, 8 penalty minutes. He's not a guy that's going to score 10, 15 goals a year for you on the back end. That's not him. He's just solid. The -5 maybe is a little bit, you'd like to have a plus, especially if you want to get paid. But, the guy's been pretty solid so far. So it's official. Jack Johnson is on the trade block, and we'll wait and see where that shakes out and where he winds up going. Big name. If you're in Toronto, finally, here's that big name, Maple Leafs fans. Here's that big one that you've been waiting for. Who's available, who's out there, so on and so forth. Here's your guy, 1A right there. That's the guy you want to go after. If he's on the block and he's going to be an easy grab, I'm sure Columbus would like some offensive help. I'm sure they would love to grab a couple of the guys. And it might be the best fit for them, too, because, I don't know who Toronto's going to wind up dumping, but Toronto, I think, for sure, has a good amount of third-line forwards, any guys that can fit into that third-line role that you might be able to send Columbus's way to solidify their forward lines and give them a little bit of depth. Sonny Milano is out for a whole bunch, so a forward for a defenseman might be the trade here. Obviously, I think you're going to have to throw in some draft picks and maybe even a first, but maybe not because he's really only a rental. That we'll have to kind of wait and see. But to me, this one is a little bit of a layup for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They should be able to go out there and they should be able to get him without really disrupting too much of their current roster. There is certainly a lot there to deal with in Toronto, and Mike Babcock is coming under fire. There are some headlines today. There's been some snippiness with the media, and let's hear. We'll go through two press scrums, not really press conferences, but press scrums for Mike Babcock and the Toronto Maple Leafs. This one took place yesterday post-practice. Here's Mike Babcock talking to the media.
You mentioned that you don't maybe feel the same way that the outside world does. Has it been trickier to, has it been trickier in Toronto, coming from Detroit, to tune that out, or do you enjoy that? Or?
This is how I kind of look at it. Is I think they hired me to decide. That's kind of how I approach it. So, my wife was there when I got home last night. I wasn't very happy, but she was there, so that made me happy. And
burn. This is how I look at it. This is how I look at it. It's my job to decide there, buckaroo. It is my little bit of snippiness. It's not uncommon. But it is definitely there.
World does. Has it been trickier to, has it been trickier in Toronto, coming from Detroit, to tune that out, or do you enjoy that? Or?
This is how I kind of look at it. Is I think they hired me to decide. That's kind of how I approach it. So, my wife was there when I got home last night. I wasn't very happy, but she was there, so that made me happy. And we're going to go on the road today. We're going to have a nice meal, and we're going to win the game tomorrow. And I'm just going to keep on keeping on. And so, I think in your lifetime, you get to decide what you react to. And so, if you let the noise get in the way of where you're going, can you imagine if every time someone in your life told you couldn't do it, you listened to them? Where would you be? Not holding that microphone. Anyway, anything else, guys?
You have an 11-point cushion on playoffs. Does that allow you to experiment, or does that change your coaching?
No, this is what I do. I live scared every day, every single day. Not as much in the summer, but all winter. That's how I live. See you guys.
I live scared every single day. That's what I love. So the question was, does that 11-point cushion allow you a little bit of room to experiment with things? The weird thing about Toronto is they're going to question your every single move every single night. They always, if you go A, the media is going to go B. That is always sort of the way that it has been. And then we had a pregame conference today. And then let's take a listen to that. We're listening to Mike Babcock with the media. Here's another clip of some snippiness from today.
In the world, would you like to get more even strike minutes for Connor Brown if there was a way to do that? Or
yeah, so why don't you canvass the top 9 and see who wants to give him that? You know what I mean? Like, my wife can tell me what's wrong, but in our business, you got to find a way to figure out what's right. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
So who am I taking? But I think Brownie, he's playing on a power play, playing a regular shift, and playing well for us, and penalty killing for us. And so I think he does a pretty good job. I thought he was one of our best players last game. Anytime a guy like that plays like he's sending a message to everybody else at the same time, right? He wants more ice time. He wants their job. And so I think that's a good message for our team.
Is there any concern at all, Mike, with a guy like Naz and having gone 20 games without an assist in the position that he plays and the minutes that he gets and that sort of thing? Are you seeing things on tape that he's doing well and not translating to helping others score? Or
yeah, I'll tell you the truth, I thought Naz's line was great last game. They're playing against a really good line. The other line didn't have. Did you see the other line he was playing against? So that set us up to win the game. So I thought he did a great job. I think on the road, it's not as easy as for those guys to have an impact because they're not going to let them play against their key people. That's just, so I think that becomes more of a prevalent thing. And that scores a ton of his goals in the net, or not net front, but in the middle on the power play, and that's where he's got to do it. I think that whole line hasn't been as effective offensively, but in the chances, they've been effective offensively. So, when Leo gets those chances and doesn't score, we got to believe it's going to go in on shooting percentage-wise.
See, so it's a tough, and I let that second one play out there. There wasn't much snippiness to that one, but I let that one play out because, here's this guy who's put in a position constantly to defend a player like Nazem Kadri, who's got 2 assists, and he's a centerman, and he's not putting up the points. But as Mike is saying, look at who he's playing against. He's keeping points off the board for us. You know, it's never easy to be there and be the logical guy when you're sitting there in front of a whole room of people that are like, why isn't so-and-so scoring? Why aren't you playing Connor Brown more? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? You know, I mean, geez, stuff like that can weigh on you. And I think Babcock is handling it well. But I'm definitely, like I said, I've noticed some snippiness. The Maple Leaf lineup is interesting to me. Like I said, they got some guys, if they want to dish, they can. You know, you've got, as the line sits right now, bring this up so you guys can see what I'm looking at here. As the line sits for you guys right now, you got Hyman with Matthews and Nylander. You've got Komarov, Kadri, and Marlowe. So that's that's what Babcock is talking about. That's kind of his little shutdown line. Marner, Bozak, and Van Riemsdyk, Martin, Frederick Gauthier, and Connor Brown. And Connor Brown is playing lights out. And how do you get him more time? You know, you heard the question there. How do you get Connor Brown? All right, you want to get Connor Brown more time? Well, ask one of the top nine forwards who wants to give up more time for Connor Brown, and everybody's going to come back and say, "No, I don't want him taking my minutes." You know, so there's a lot to be decided about in the Toronto organization. But you know, Hyman, Brown, you know, Marner or Nylander. I wouldn't. I tried not to trade either one of those guys. I love Matt Martin. They have what's his name too that's hurt. He's wearing number 20. The former New York Ranger. I love him. They got Joffrey Lupul's out long term, I think. Yeah, Zaitsev. They got a lot of guys there. They have a little bit of room to budge if they want to. So I think Dominic Moore. Thank you, Eddie. Thanks. See, the old noggin ain't what it used to be, man. Ain't what it used to be. Dominic Moore. They got Dominic Moore. You know, so they got a good third line. They got some good depth in there. If they, you know, they got to make a run, or if they want to move somebody, who Columbus will take back in return is anybody's guess. I mean, I'm guessing they're going to be asking for Kadri over Bozak. You know, like. Obviously, the Leafs don't want to offer Bozak, and you know, I'm sure Columbus would counter with Kadri. And you know, if you offered up a Connor Brown, or if you offered up a Zach Hyman, I'm sure they'd come back and want a Nylander or a Mitch Marner. You know, so that all that stuff is going to have to be worked out amongst the general managers of the respective clubs. And Lou Lamoriello, by the way, is a shark out there. He is a tough one to negotiate with as far as trades go, but we'll see what happens there. Eddie likes Bozak and a pick for Johnson. If that's going to be the case, it's got to be a number 1 pick. And I don't know if just one will get it done. And I really, really don't know if just one will get it done. But they got to figure out something. Now, Evander's asking an interesting question there. Not about Johnson. Could be. People think Burakovsky could be trade bait. Healthy scratch again. Your thoughts? I think if Burakovsky is continuously a healthy scratch, that he's going to get moved. I mean, I would think so. We talked about the Caps maybe picking up a defenseman anyway. Jack Johnson would be a fit in there, and Burakovsky would be a nice little addition. You know, he would be a nice little addition. I don't hate this kid. He's never been outstanding or sort of risen to the hype of where he might have been. But I mean, think of all the players that, you know, that are like that haven't. He's still really young. How old is Burakovsky? He's super young, isn't he? He's 22. I mean, he's super young. Here's the problem with Burakovsky, and I talked about this similarly with the Islanders the other night, and Adam Pelech. His number sucks. He's got a loser scrub number. Now, if you're a defenseman and you want to wear 65 10 years from now, I get it because of what Carlson did for the number. But you're a forward wearing 65. That's a loser number. You're definitely getting sent down to the minors in training camp number. So that's the big knock on Burakovsky for me. I don't like these guys who come up here picking non-hockey numbers. It doesn't really bode well for them. Hockey Talk Show here on a Thursday. We're going to get into some trade rumors big time. Remember to hit that like button if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. Share this if you can, especially if you're on YouTube. Share that over to your Facebook page, your Twitter, or whatever. We certainly will appreciate the sharing. Sharing is caring on the Hockey Talk Show. And, of course, everything you need to know about the program is up there at hockeytalkshow.com. Thanks to those of you guys who are listening on Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, or Spotify. 21 games played for Burakovsky this season, 3 goals and 5 assists for 8 points. So he's almost a point every other game player, which is pretty good for him considering how jam-packed that Capitals lineup is and the fact that he really can't get into there. I'm not really sure where Burakovsky was playing, Evander. Maybe you can help me out with that. I would imagine he was a second, third line kind of a guy. I don't think they were playing him with Ovi, but maybe they were for a little while. I don't know. I could definitely see him going. And to me, he'd be... See, this is... Now, Leafs fans, this is what you got to think about, because Burakovsky could be a real score for them and definitely more attractive, I think, than a Tyler Bozak. So that is why, again, when you're dealing with a free market and a manager goes out and says, I got this guy, make me your best offer, and you're the Leafs and you're dying for this player and it makes sense for him to go there, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to happen, because if Caps come up with something or, whoever else comes up with a better package and they put it together, that's the package that they're going to take, That's really the package that they're going to take. So a lot to be done here in this mid-January position for some of these managers. Let's go around the league and take a look at the trade rumors here. Frank Saravelli updated his NHL trade bait list, adding Jack Johnson to the mix, Jean-Gabriel Pageau, and Michael Grabner. Also blue liner Nick Holden and San Jose Sharks goaltender Aaron Dell. Let's see here. I like Pageau to move. Grabner and Holden. Let's see what happens. But there's certainly Aaron Dell coming into the mix is certainly interesting. Again, the goalie market continues to be super weak, and by all signs pointing to the Sabres not wanting to let go of Robin Lehner, it'll continue to be weak. By the way, that could be just a bargaining chip, them floating that out there. I think he can be had. He's just got to, nobody's going to turn down 2 first-round draft picks and a killer prospect, especially if it's a killer goalie prospect for Robin Lehner. I think if you're Buffalo, you got to give yourself some time. That's the key. You have to give yourself some time if you're Buffalo. Again, don't just look at your own franchise. You have to look at the franchises around the league. For the Buffalo Sabres, can you beat the Tampa Bay Lightning to come out of the East? Can you beat Pittsburgh? Can you beat Columbus? You've got to think about that stuff. To waste these guys' time on floundering years doesn't make a whole ton of sense to me. Evander Burakovsky was second-line winger last season, third, then fourth to scratch. Yeah, and his numbers last season weren't outstanding. Last season, he was 12 and 23 in 64 games. So, again, a point every other game. He seems to be a point every other game player. In 79 games the season before that, he only had 38 points. So, again, yeah, he's a point every other game kind of a player. To me, that's a solid third-line player. I look at Burakovsky and I see Josh Bailey, to be honest with you. I see a guy that's just, I see Jeff Glass. I see a guy that's just going to bloom late. So can you hang on to this kid and be there when he finally pays off, when he finally pays dividends? That's going to be the question. If you watch the Bruins Habs game like I did last night on NBC-SN, you saw Bob McKenzie in there talking about his NHL Insider segment there, and he is another one who's speculating on the trade rumors for the New York Rangers. He said that the Rangers aren't committed to trading Ryan McDonagh. However, he notes the club has been reloading since last year. trading Derek Stepan to Arizona and buying out Dan Girardi. He believes they're doing due diligence in case they fall out of playoff contention and can get an incredible offer from McDonough, winger Matt Zuccarello, or pending unrestricted free agents Rick Nash or Michael Grabner. That's the key. Those first two are going to bring in a ton for the Ranger fans. You trade McDonough, you trade Matt Zuccarello, you're gonna pick up some scratch for that. Rick Nash is not going to give you anything, and Michael Grabner, I think, will give you a pretty good return, although he's a rental and he flounders at times. So I don't think he'll be as good, as lucrative in a trade return as, say, Matt Zuccarello would be. But if the Rangers are calling around right now and they're doing their due diligence, then good on Jeff Gordon. He's doing his job because that's what they should be doing. You can't sit in a position where you're at right now, and if you are the Rangers, and not be doing that due diligence. You need to be picking up the phone and calling. By the way, Leafs fans, how excited would you be for number 27? Oh, my God. Can you imagine Ryan McDonough with the Leafs? I like Jack Johnson going to Toronto. I love Ryan McDonough going there. I love it. That would be such a great fit. Imagine McDonough and Riley. Oh, my God. That's a nice, that suddenly becomes a real nice decor. A real nice decor. Paul Gackle, who has the best name in sports coverage right now, reports that the San Jose Sharks are actively shopping a fourth-line center. He thinks Doug Wilson and head coach Pete DeBoer are crossing their fingers, hoping recently demoted veteran defenseman Paul Martin plays well enough in the minors to attract inference from rivalry clubs. You can cross your fingers all you want. That's never going to happen. Gackle feels Martin could be the Sharks' only reasonable trade chip, as he doesn't expect they'll shop backup goaltender Aaron Dell or young defensemen such as Tim Heed, Dylan DeMello, or Joachim Ryan. Wilson has previously stated his unwillingness to move his young forwards. By the way, general managers are going to state a lot of things right now, and they're not going to come to fruition. Not whatsoever. Ken Wiebe suggests that despite the Jets' lofty position in the Western Conference standings, they should be buyers before the trade deadline. He notes the roster doesn't have much playoff experience, could benefit from adding a scoring winger and center. He feels that Derek Brassard could be an enticing trade option. I could see Brassard going to Winnipeg for sure. That would entice the heck out of me as well. J.D. Burke noted recently conflicting reports regarding the trade status of Vancouver defenseman Ben Hutton. Earlier this month, Province's Jason Botchford reported Canucks GM Jim Benning denied a report by the Ottawa Sun's Bruce Garrett, claiming that the club was entertaining calls for the blue liner. Burke explored the pros and cons of moving Hutton, suggesting there's merit to either outcome. I don't really care that much that Hutton is available. To me, he's not that big of a defenseman. I think there's bigger ones, especially now that you have Jack Johnson on the trade market. That's what I'm saying. Evander writes in, but he is a scratch over Chason and Stevenson. Even brought up Boyd and played him nuts. You know, some guys fall out of line with their coaches, man. You know, that's really all what it comes down to. You know, it's a shame. It's heartbreaking, isn't it? When your guy doesn't pan out, or when he's not panning out. You hit that 3 or 4 year season mark and it's just not really there. You know, the Islanders just went through this and they traded that problem to Edmonton for Jordan Eberle, and that seems to work out good. So again, I go back to my philosophy with the Caps here, and that is I don't see it as a bad thing that they get a little turnover going. I don't see that as a bad thing. Whether it's at the deadline or at the end of the year and they let some of these free agents go and they retool a little bit, I think a little bit of new blood could be really helpful for the Washington Capitals. I really, really believe that. And if they're going to flip a Burakovsky and bring in somebody different to change the dynamic of their lineup, then good. I will say I will keep my eye on this Burakovsky thing, Evander, for sure. And I'll ask around and see if anybody is hearing any rumblings. But you know, as far as trade rumors go, I can tell you that he's not really being talked about all that much. If he's being scratched, we could definitely put him on the list of trade speculation, but he's not really being buzzed about as much as some of the other guys are, you know, your Evander Kanes and your Mike Hoffmans and all of that. And part of that is, you know, the Caps aren't going to be sellers. So if they are going to make a move, you know, it is going to be in a position of power where they want to add on and get themselves some depth. How do you think the Caps are going to do tonight against the Devils is the question. How is that going to go down? Devils are killing me, man. Every time I think, man, they're sliding a little bit, and this might be the way that they go out. You know, they rebound, and they have a game like they had against the Islanders the other night where they kill them. Caps and Devils. What do you think? I might be crazy enough to pick the Devils on this one. I'm afraid to tell you that. Let's go through our picks and wrap it up here. Chicago said Isles 5, Bruins 3. Eddie says Buffalo 4, Rangers 2. Eddie also says Flyers 15, Maple Leafs 2. Islanders 6, Boston 1. This is, I think, the game of the night. Vegas 4, Tampa 3. That is a bold prediction there, Eddie. That's a bold prediction. And what could be, and what I predicted reluctantly, maybe a little bit, a Stanley Cup final, Vegas and Tampa tonight from Tampa. That's the key for me. Eddie's picking the Caps over the Devils. I'm going to go Devils over the Caps. I'm going to go Islanders over the Bruins. I just think that the Islanders have to start beating hot, good teams if they want to be contenders. They need to be looking long and hard in the mirror at home here with Boston playing just last night against Montreal. I wish that was a little bit of a tougher game for the Bruins. It really wasn't. It was kind of an easy skate for them. But still, I'm hoping that they had a little bit of a hard time getting out of Boston and getting into Brooklyn. So that's why I'm picking the Islanders. It's really a back-to-back. If the Bruins had the night off last night, I honestly would be picking the Bruins before this one. But I'm going to pick the Islanders because I think they're going to stand up. I think they have to. I think they have to rebound from their loss to the Devils, and they got to get tough. Toronto and Philly, I'm not going to go with a 15-2 score here, but I am going to pick the Philadelphia Flyers, and I think the Leafs continue to skid a little bit. This is a tricky one because they're going to be retiring 88's jersey, so there's going to be a big pregame ceremony. They asked Mike Babcock, I didn't play that clip for you, if the team was going to be on the bench. For whatever reason, they seem to think that's a big deal that the visiting team is on the bench for these ceremonies. I don't think it really matters. I actually think it's better that the visiting team stays in the locker room, to be honest with you. I don't see this as a respect thing for Lindros or whoever's getting honored. I think whoever it is that night that's getting honored, the opposing team should just stay off the ice. Just be off the ice. You know, when they look back at photos and pictures of this, you don't want to see Lindros standing in front of a bunch of Maple Leafs jerseys. You know what I'm saying? So, stay off the ice. I don't think you should be on the ice for that. But give me Philly nonetheless. I think they're playing good enough to beat the Leafs, and I think they'll beat the Leafs. Dallas and Columbus should be a really interesting one. Jack Johnson, there doesn't seem to be a lot of animosity there. He seems to be handling it really well. Let's see. Eddie didn't pick this one yet. Did you? No. Give me Columbus. Give me the Rangers at home against Buffalo. Give me the St. Louis Blues on the road in Ottawa. Arizona and Nashville. Who really cares? But I'll take Nashville. Colorado and San Jose. Give me the Avalanche. Can't believe I'm picking the Avs over the San Jose Sharks. Kings and the Pittsburgh Penguins. I think the Pens lose. Again, back-to-back nights here. They are traveling on the road. It's not a tough grind. Anaheim to Los Angeles. In fact, they probably stayed in the same hotel last night. But still, I don't like the Pens on this road trip. Give me the Kings there. And the big matchup tonight, Vegas and Tampa Bay. It's a shame because this should be the national game. Rangers and Buffalo are the national game. I mean, Jesus. The NBC folks need to work out a flex schedule where they can alter who they select because nobody gives a flying crap about the Rangers and the Sabres tonight. And you got Vegas and Tampa Bay. Honestly, second half flex schedule. They should take a page out of the NFL's book and get that going because this is just embarrassing to me to have these guys going tonight on your national broadcast in the States. That should be Vegas and Tampa. Could be a Stanley Cup preview. Give me the Tampa Bay Lightning. I like Tampa at home. I don't like Vegas on the road, but I think you're going to see one hell of a game. If you got the NHL package or whatever, skip your local game tonight, man. Watch Vegas and Tampa. This is going to be a fast, in-your-face kind of a game. It'll give us a little bit of a preview here on how tough either of these teams are. Vegas and Tampa is my pick of the night for a great game. Give me Tampa. Give me 4-3. I think we'll see some offense tonight. Give me 4-3 Tampa over Vegas. Fun talking hockey with you guys. We'll be back tomorrow night. Last show of the week. Heading into the weekend, I'm sure there'll be a ton more trade rumors. We'll recap the Eric Lindros ceremony a little bit. I was going to talk about Lindros on the show tonight, but then I just decided not to. I'm sure we'll see some of the highlights from his ceremony, and we'll have some of that for you on tomorrow's show. Anything else you want to talk about, always leave the comments below. I check the comments continuously, even days after the shows. And again, hit that share button, especially if you're on Facebook, whether you want to share the YouTube or Facebook show. Fine by me. It's all good all around. Hit the thumbs up, though, for sure, if you enjoy the program. Eddie, thanks for all the comments. Chicago, Evander, Krista, Sandra, everybody else for watching. Thanks so much. I will see you guys.